Hello and welcome to From the Be All End and another Burnley defeat to dissect, but really one that was a proper gut punch. And I think we've got a full team here today with Andrew Greaves, Paul Woodhouse, Justin Conley, and Chris Bowden here with me, Simon Evans. And it's I watched the interview with Vincent Kompany after the match, and I have to say I have never seen him look as dejected and as downbeat as in the official club interview after that game. Context, obviously, it's 20 minutes, half an hour after the final whistle of a game where we were winning in the 86th minute and lost 2-1. But then you go on social media and you go on chat forums and all that sort of thing, and there's a lot of talk now about whether it is time for a change of manager. Now, I know a lot of people think that's a discussion that we shouldn't even be counting in, but let's have it. Let's have that discussion. So, I mean, for me, the big question to start it all off is this season savable? And if it is, does changing manager from Vincent Kompany give us more chance of survival or not? Greavesy?
Yes, it is savable. And I say that in terms of we are still only 13 games into a 38-game season. So, if we go into every game thinking that there's a chance that it will turn around at some point, absolutely, it's not beyond saving. We are still just about in touch. Luton's win didn't really help us. And for me, it's only savable with Vincent Kompany because the problem you've got is you bring somebody else in who's not bought these players, who will take a little bit of time to get going. I think it's now a myth, the whole new manager bounce. I think that went out the window when Big Fat Sam and the likes, little Sammy Lee and whoever else he brought into Leeds just didn't work out. I think we could put that to bed now. But who do you bring in? That'd be my big question. Who do you bring in? And what more could they get out of these players? Because ultimately, Saturday's defeat to West Ham, I think he's squarely at the feet of the manager, because I think that starting 11 probably sees that game out. I think the changes he made were the wrong changes at the wrong time. And we've said this a few times this season. Too late with changes, not getting impetus enough, blah, blah, blah. I think that starting 11, perhaps if Goodmanson's knackered, you bring a like-for-like replacement on rather than Cullen and then Brownhill out wide. It's purely on the manager. So I don't think the players, we'll talk about the defending. Obviously, that is on the players. But I think that, again, stems from the manager. It's the third performance in a row where we've had a good fist of it. And I think we were probably near perfect. People might criticise that use of near perfect for 83, 84 minutes. Restricted West Ham, made him look very ordinary, created some good chances, just weren't clinical enough. So I don't know who rescues this situation with that group of players, and that's my big issue.
So you're blaming Vincent Kompany for that defeat, but he's the only one who can save us.
Yeah, I know that sounds absolutely bonkers, but because we talked, didn't we? Sean Dyche versus Vincent Kompany's purpose versus project. It's then turning the project into a purpose. And again, I think there's signs that the project is working. It's just that it's not, the 11 moving parts aren't all working together. But if we've invested, I don't see how we can possibly expect, ask, get somebody else to rescue it. But I think sticking with Kompany, I know it sounds mad. I know it's that whole insanity, is this doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I still believe in the project. I sound like some cult member, but I mean, I've ripped my wall chart up because that's gone to shit in a handcart. But largely speaking, I still believe in the project.
Justin?
Yeah, I think I believe in the project as well. I think, this plan we've got to, bring all these young players in and try and unearth some diamonds is exactly the right way for Burnley to go. That's the way that clubs like ours can, stay competitive and do well. Not just be competitive, but do well. And we've basically trying to rebuild the side on the fly in the Premier League, which is a tough ask, isn't it? It really is. I think we would have expected at this point to have a few more points than we actually do. but we were also expecting to struggle for a little bit. Now, I think the big question you've got to ask yourself is, after that game on Saturday, are we seeing progress? Are things getting better? Now, on the face of it, it's another defeat, isn't it? That's what will go down when you look in your Rothmans in next year. It'll say Burnley lost to West Ham, but it's a team that are currently on 20 points. They're ahead of Chelsea. They're just 3 and 4 points behind Newcastle and United. We gave them a proper game, and I know that in the end we didn't get anything to show for it. But to me, that's a step ahead of where we were in the last game. So you can talk about the substitutions. Sometimes he doesn't seem to act early enough. Sometimes he leaves it a bit too late, I think, to make changes. I agree that the changes he made on Saturday were a bit baffling. I'm not sure. I think everything fell apart when Goodmanson went off and Cullen came on and tried to play. I couldn't understand what was happening there. But really, we were inviting a bit of pressure by that point, and I think you could argue we were a bit unlucky when they got the equaliser, and then after that it seemed inevitable that West Ham were going to get another one, didn't it? Just by the way the game was going. But I think, to me, that showed again a little bit of progress. And like I said before, if we're only a couple of games away from safety come Christmas, I think we can start to kick on a little bit. The idea that things aren't going to get better, I think, is mistaken. I think things are going to continue to improve, and we're not that far away from picking up some points, I don't think.
Boards?
Yeah, well, it's just that's it. Again, they so often go back to the wisdom of Sean Dyche. And Sean Dyche should always say it's often braver not to make any substitutions. That everyone expects a manager to 60, 65 minutes gone, get subs on, and Sean would infuriate some supporters. And this was a game for. We've spoken about the team's naivety and game management. This is the manager's game management, and he should have seen the game out from that point. Whether it's bringing an Ekdal on, or like Greasy suggested, a like for Goodmanson, energy and Premier League experience in a Redmond or something like that. Taking Koleosho off and allows Koufal to advance a bit more safely up the pitch as West Ham are pressing. But bottom line is they cannot defend. West Ham have offered now for 80-odd minutes, and the defending for both goals is absolutely abysmal. Four claret and blue shirts around Kudus. He gets a crossing, and in the middle there's the goalkeeper and O'Shea, and the ball ends up in the back of the net. And the winner, I think there's 3 white shirts in space at the far post, and Souček, who we all know how difficult he is to handle, but he's not had to do anything to turn the ball in. And we're talking about one of the elite defenders, one of the greatest Premier League defenders has ever been, and we cannot defend. And it's like Sheffield United away last season every week, that you put this Burnley team under any pressure and they creak until they collapse. And I just don't see, the goal, they've scored a goal from a penalty. They're not scored from open play. We're talking about, can they keep clean sheets? No, they can't keep clean sheets. Can they score goals? Well, that's a major issue as well. I mean, should have had the penalty in the first half's more of a penalty than the one that gets given. I'll look at the Martial one today that Man United get at Everton, and it's exactly the same. They say like still pictures don't tell the full picture, but Koufal is turned away from Koleosho and has hung a leg out in the still. What's his leg doing there? But then you run it through, and he's definitely left a leg. He's brought him down. It's a penalty. And if VAR can't give that, then it just absolutely beggars belief. But there's got to be, for me, some sense. I agree with all that's been said about the project and probably well ahead of time in that respect, having got promotion last year. But there's got to be a sense of jeopardy for Vincent Kompany. This cannot continue. It's absolutely embarrassing. You're shamefaced. Whenever you talk to your mates who are opposition fans, you're just like, you're a laughing stock. And it's, I certainly don't enjoy it. But that when Sean took Burnley up in 2014 and they came down and they weren't good enough. They took it to the last 3 games. But I think everyone accepted that, Sean had spent like about 10 million quid because, they had to spend money on doing up Gawthorpe, and, he had to do it on that budget, and that was the way, I think everyone expected Burnley to go down, and they did go down. But when you've had a top world top 10 summer transfer spend, and this is the end product that we're seeing at the minute, it's the transfer policy was scattergun. It was bizarre, and to my mind, I mean, I've never thought in a million years I'd find myself saying this. If Burnley lose to Sheffield United on Saturday, the serious questions going to be asked to the manager. It just cannot continue. But
so, are you saying if we lose against Sheffield United, you would bin him?
I'm not saying I would bin him, but I'm saying there has to be some real, deep thinking. The chairman's going to have a think long and hard, and are we heading in the right direction here? Because it's just absolutely it's abysmal.
Woody,
we were kind of 10 minutes away from arguably the best performance and the best result of the season yesterday by quite a distance. And now everybody's flapping again, not knowing what the devil to do. And yeah, we can talk about projects, etc., etc. And it's like, well, what would changing Kompany round about Christmas, because we'd assume that's when it'd be, and, what kind of money would we then want to... It's kind of asking that question, who do we want to spend this 60 to 80 million that may be floating around for the January transfer fund? And it's, do we trust Vincent to understand where his gaps are, etc., and to fill those effectively and to move on and to continue with that project? Or is somebody else a better bet to come in and, plug those gaps, etc.? And I haven't got a clue. I don't think anybody else necessarily has a clue. And I'm not seeing as yet anything from the players which would indicate that they've lost faith in Vincent or necessarily the project. We might start hearing things as the weeks transpire, but it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one, and I don't know necessarily where I exactly stand on it, to be honest with you.
The players don't look. It doesn't look like he's lost the dressing room at all. I completely agree with that. They were working their socks off. The pressing early in the second half was really, really good. And I totally agree with you that I think we were 5 minutes away from, sitting here and saying, you know what, we were better against Palace. Did really well against Arsenal, and this has been another step forward, and we look better. But if the other big thing when you're talking about Kompany's future is he signed a 5-year contract extension in the summer, 2028 it runs out in. I mean, I don't want to be in Alan Pace's shoes if it carries on like this, because they will have to have that conversation. I think Chris is right in that sense, and Woody's probably right that it probably would come around Christmas sort of time. If we just carried on like this and we've got 7 points at Christmas or something, are we looking? But how much compensation are they having to pay out then? It's kind of trapped themselves a little bit with this one, haven't they? I mean, the problem for me goes right back to the transfer window, and that's what I worry about for the long term. Is most of the people I'm reading online who are defending Kompany and saying it's ridiculous to even talk about getting rid of him are saying, well, he'll bring us up next season. But we'll have, presuming we sell 1 or 2 players, we'll have to do a mini rebuild for next season. Do we trust Kompany after the Horlicks he's made of a transfer window this summer, do we trust him to get it right then, Greavesy?
Well, I think a couple of things really. I mean, first of all, I don't think you'd fit in Alan Pace's shoes. To be honest, I imagine he had relatively tiny feet compared to someone of your stature. So it would be very uncomfortable for you being in Pace's shoes. I've just been sent a stat by my mate Martin Pruden. VK needs 7 points in his next 5 games to avoid equaling or bettering, if that's the right way of putting it, Brian Lawes' 10-point total from 18 Premier League games. So let's just use that to focus minds a little bit. Yeah, I mean, the whole kind of, sod it, we'll walk the championship. I'm in your camp, Simon. I think we all agree. We ain't walking the championship with this team. I mean, not in a million years. It would need a rebuild. Again, you know what I mean? Because you'd probably lose your Amdoun Izu again. Thought, look, pretty good coming in. You know, when we talk about is things getting better, absolutely. Would I trust VK with the transfer budget in January? I guess is, you know, if we don't get rid, you know, that's what we're going to look at. And I don't think we will get rid. I think he needs somebody to kind of really question. And I just wonder whether the board is strong enough. You know what I mean? I think after Pace's comments about, you know, and I'm not criticising Alan Pace on this, but, you know, it's like dating the most beautiful girl in town and you know she's going to leave you. There feels to be almost he's in awe of Vincent Kompany. We've said this before, haven't we? I don't think there's enough people within the board structure to really kind of go, hang on a minute, yes, we will give you money, but a blind man on a galloping horse can see that we didn't plug that gap. When undoubtedly Vincent wants to go out and sign a few more wingers because that will definitely make us better. That will definitely create more chances. You know, if Lyle Foster sadly is going to be out for much longer, and you know, it doesn't sound like we're going to see him in the foreseeable, a striker has to be a top priority. A striker in January, one that's proven, one that will score you goals, is going to cost a lot of money. You know, does he have?
Unless you bring him back from a loan spell with Besiktas.
Don't even go there. I mean, I think he's got 1 goal for Hoffenheim. I mean, just rule that crap out straight away. I'm not
Besiktas.
Yeah, I'm not even getting involved in the Weghorst, you know, debate. But what do we need? Well, unless Ekdal proves to be that kind of strong central defender, because unfortunately, and I love Jordan Beyer, I've noticed when he comes to challenge for a high ball, 40 yards from goal, inevitably he loses that aerial battle because he's just not strong enough. I mean, the only challenge we've really seen, Jay went straight through, took man and ball for the Mubamba, I think it was, who'd come on. You know what I mean? As defence, and we've said it before, it just isn't hard enough. You know what I mean? There's not somebody who's willing to really stick their head in where it hurts. Now, I think Ekdal is probably more because of his lack of pace, because of his, you know, he's probably more of a traditional central defender. But we can't be losing a ball. We can't be losing an aerial battle, or our centre half can't be losing an aerial battle 40, 45 yards from goal. When we do it all the time, he either misjudges the bounce or he just gets out-muscled by somebody. And, you know, they've recycled play and he's 45 yards from his own goal. Now, it didn't lead to goals, on Saturday, but that's the danger, you know. We saw so clinical. So there's a lot of questions on that January transfer window. I mean, you said metaholics of it. I don't think there's any other way to describe it, really. Yes, we brought in some potentially very, very good players, but we've not brought in a team, have we? And that's
we spent 20 million on a goalkeeper who, without going into that whole debate again, I think we can all agree has not been better than Muric, right?
No, but I think he had his best game on Saturday. I will say that. I thought he looked confident first half with his distribution. I thought he flapped at one corner late on, but I think he was getting fouled anyway.
But he was our biggest signing of the summer.
He was, and again, you know, signs of progress. It's a low bar, but I thought that was his best game. I think second half he reverted to laboured distribution. Like, first off, we were a bit quick with distribution, and it seemed to kind of work quite well. I don't think Ings had his first touch until about the 32nd minute, but that's the issue. You know, you've asked this question before, Simon, on and off air. You know, were we trying to be too cute, bringing all these young lads, and we expected everything to happen straight away? It's becoming more and more like I think that was it. Like, almost like we'll wave a magic wand, and all these lads who've no Premier League experience will suddenly be worth 100 million, and we'll be fine. And it might be a bit of a struggle, but we'll be fine, and they'll look great and everything. Mike Trezor not in the match day squad. Odegaard not in the match day squad. Auda Keel from last season not in the match day squad. You know, lots of players who have been brought in not in the match day squad. You know, is that an admission of things haven't quite panned out? I don't know.
I mean, the other way of looking at this issue is, which I think is probably more realistic than Alan Pace turning around after the Sheffield United match and saying, right, pay him out that 5-year contract. And he's probably the best, well, he almost certainly will be the best paid Burnley manager ever, won't he? I think we can assume that. So that's a massive amount of compensation. But I'll look at it from the other side as well. And I think this question actually tells you whether we should get rid of him or not. But if he was to turn around tomorrow and say, I'm holding my hands up, it's just not working out, I've got to go, hopefully somebody can do a better job than me with this team. If he were to walk, we'd be gutted, wouldn't we? We'd be gutted if Vincent Kompany walked out to tomorrow and somebody else had to pick up this team and try and get them through the season. Is there, though, a danger that might happen? Because we've all presumed, this is an open question, we've all presumed that Vincent Kompany is doing this job as a stepping stone to, you know, becoming Manchester City manager or taking another job en route to one day becoming Manchester City manager. This ain't doing him any favours, is it? This ain't doing him any favours being a laughingstock, as Chris puts it. I mean, does he throw the towel in? Is there a risk of that? Oh,
I don't think so. I mean, how could you... His stock would be very low, wouldn't it, if he walked out on this? You know, first season, fantastic. This team, this club now has got his sort of imprint all over it. If he walks away from this now, where does he go next? That's the question, isn't it, for him? I don't see him getting a job at this level. You know, if he was to walk out on us now, so. I find that very difficult. And he's not that kind of guy, is he? You know, I know you said he looked sort of dejected after the game, but he's not that kind of guy. You know, his whole career would suggest that giving up on something is just something that's not in his personality, not in his character. And I think it would be a mistake for him professionally as well, because he needs to show, doesn't he, that when things get tough, he can get beyond that and move into a situation where things are improving. And I think he will, like me, see signs that things are improving. I know that, you know, it was desperately disappointing when those 2 goals went in. You know, the atmosphere, despite the lack of flags in the stadium, the atmosphere was pretty good, I thought. I don't know if that came across on TV or whether those that were there can you know, would agree with that. I thought the fans were really up for it, and you know, it wasn't the performance from the crowd that you would expect from a team that's bottom of the division and lost every game. Obviously, things went, you know, went south later on, and you know, there was a lot of people walked out when that second goal went in, but. I don't know. I think he would see that things are, you know, like Greasy said before. There's a lot of games still to play. A lot of games against teams who, you know, I think if we'd been playing like we did on Saturday, every game this season, we wouldn't be bottom of the table now. So I think there's something happening. If I think what's happening is happening, we should really beat Sheffield United on Saturday, shouldn't we? We should, and if we don't, and then that's when we've got to start thinking, hang on a minute, there's something not quite right here. This is not going the way we thought.
just a quick update on the Brian Laws stat. If we don't beat Sheffield United, apparently he'll have less points than Laws did after 14 Premier League games. So, just an update from Martin on the the Brian Laws stats.
I say they've dropped 15. Yeah, dropped 15 points from winning positions. So that sort of says all you need to know. Like I say, we spoke about a young team and their naivety in seeing games out, the manager's decisions in making sure we see games out, and you can accept. I mean, both manager and his players are learning at this level, but it's got to. The lessons have to be learned, and they aren't being. Everyone in the ground knew what was going to happen at one apiece yesterday. It's stopping it, isn't it? They couldn't stop it, and I did say 2-1, didn't I? Preview, but not too chuffed to be right on that occasion. But it's I don't. You look at the chairman gave Sean Dyche a contract to the end of 2025, not long after the window shut in summer of 21, and had the nerve. You see, press the button with 8 games to go that season. So, I mean, you could tell, we go back to the documentary and sort of this time last year, when not quite, just before, the World Cup break, where things were, too many draws in there, etc. And there was the questions being asked, weren't they, around the boardroom about, where's this going? Are we behind schedule, etc. Those conversations must be taking place, and I've no doubt if Pace feels, Burnley will be better served with a different manager, he'll make that decision. But again, it goes back to that. Nobody wants one of these tired old firefighter types, do they, to come in, and I don't think this group of players would respond to that type of manager. Most, if not all, of these players have signed for Vincent Kompany. They've not signed for Burnley Football Club. They signed for Vincent Kompany. Yeah. So unless you're a Brighton whose forward planning is ridiculously good, and you lose Potter and bring De Zerbi in, and you're better for it. I've no idea.
Where's Potter, by the way? Is he working?
He's sort of mulling offers and this, that, and the other, isn't he? But
is he?
Does he get
easy, Simon?
Here's another stat for you, Greavesy. Here's a stat for you. We have never won a Premier League game with JJ Watt in attendance.
Is that right?
He's a jinx.
He's a jinx.
Wow.
Woody. I mean,
oh God, what?
Go on. Chalmers.
After this bollocks, it's like it's one thing as saying he's there and he could wind up having a worse record than Brian Laws, but there's also that glaring ominous cloud over him that he could wind up being the worst ever Premier League manager. There's that staring us like squarely in the face. And at some point, does he start to think, hang on a minute, I really can't have this shit floating around. There's one thing being shit. There's another thing being the absolute abject worst. And does he start to manufacture, if things don't go to plan over this next month, does he start to manufacture, a firing or a sacking? Does he make it extremely difficult for little Al to keep him in the building by saying, I want 40 million for this geezer, otherwise we aren't going to stop up, and things along those lines. But as if fucking Al knows what he's doing, how does he know how to fire him and get somebody else in? They haven't got a fucking clue. At the end of the day, they don't, so we're going to have to stick with...
Well, he didn't know who Vincent Kompany was, did he, when his name was first suggested?
Yeah, this is all my fault, isn't it, for suggesting a tweet that we go for Vincent Kompany rather than Chris Wilder. But you asked what Potter's up to. What's Chris Wilder up to?
No, you see, this is the thing. This is one thing that, and I'll repeat, I would not get rid of Vincent Kompany now. I think it would be madness. But
yeah,
if you're having a discussion about who could replace him, I'm not having this. There's no one who could replace him, or we won't get any. Or the only alternative is for us to go for Big Sam or Neil Warnock or Chris Wilder or something. We've got a team full of players from all over the world, South Africans, Belgians. We could have a manager from anywhere in the world. We could bring in some guy from Serie A. We offer better wages than most leagues, most clubs in the world now. We could take our pick from a lot of very, very good managers. So let's not kid ourselves, we'll bring back Big Stan with Brian Laws to hold it firm until end of the season or something.
How many of those guys are going to want to come to a club that's got 4 points and are at the bottom of the Premier League?
Premier League, though, isn't it? I agree. I do think there's a pull in there. Simon, you kind of hinted on the WhatsApp group. Oh, I think we could find someone better. I don't know if that meant you had a name in mind, or whether it was just a general.
No, I don't have a name in mind.
As you just mentioned, kind of general.
It goes back to it's a mentality. We're stuck a little bit like we used to be with transfer signings, where because we only focused on one tiny segment of the market, where we went for the Jeff Hendricks and the Dale Stevenses and the Championship performers and Andre Grays and people like that. We never considered having a look for young players that Kompany has gone and signed, or players in Italy or in Eastern Europe or whatever, and they didn't exist for Burnley. And it's exactly the same with a manager. There's no reason now why we should be, if we were to make a change, why we'd have to be looking for those sort of, retreads. No reason at all. We could go out and sign, somebody like, obviously not Desiree, but someone like that, somebody from Serie A we could bring in, or somebody from, France or whatever. There's no reason why we couldn't do that. And they would come. They would come.
Will Still. Will Still from Stad Reims or wherever.
Doing a staggering job, isn't he? Yeah.
But it is, isn't it? I mean, it's that bravery, isn't it? I mean, I think Kompany was a brave choice because I think everybody expected a Wilder or a British manager and things like that, because that's what we'd been used to. My other question is to people who are, and it is a growing chorus of people saying, let's sack Kompany. We'd all got fed up of watching Sean Dyche football. Apparently, that's what we were fed up of it being crap and long ball or unadventurous, and we got relegated. We now kind of don't want to have the patience to see where a project's going to take us. What do we want? You know what I mean? It is that kind of almost going back to, childlike. Well, I don't want that, and I don't want that, and I don't want that, and I don't want that. Ultimately, if we do go down, I'd like us not to go down with a whimper. If we have to go down, I'd like some fight and us to win some football matches. But for me, the other overriding thing is we've broken away from 10 years of purpose of Eric Peters, of Phil Bardsley, of Stephen Reed, of all them players who have nothing against them players, great servants, did well for us. But I'd still much rather see a Koleosho come good and Amdouni come good than us having them transfer windows where we're going back for players we were first linked with 3 or 4 years previously and finally getting them when they're 3 or 4 years past the best. And I just think that'd be my question to people as well. Sorry, Chris.
But they did. I mean, they did develop play. I mean, people forget that. Everyone looks at it at the end and thinks like, "Oh, we did was sign Stokes relics," but Sean didn't sign Trippier and me and Ings, but he turned them into first Premier League players. Yeah. He developed.
Absolutely not arguing.
He saw James Tarkowski. He wanted him when he was at Oldham. Couldn't afford 350 grand, had to bide his time. Got him from Brentford in the Championship. Was patiently developed him while he was developing Michael Keane. Developed Andre Gray. Somehow got 18 million quid for him. And it was only at the end where he was, again, strapped for cash, but in a position where I feel I've earned the right not to have to develop players here, where I can sign ready-made who do the job for me that I can hang my hat on every week. So it's about it's having both, isn't it? You've got to. Yeah. We haven't got. We've gone too far the other way. That we haven't got. Let's say signing a Redmond, great. Say the one that we should have signed Townsend as well. But it's to be underperforming. When compared to Luton Town, who spent £3.50, is scandalous. We last season we absolutely, how many points clear of Luton? They've come up through the playoffs. They've not been able to bring anyone in the summer, and they are outperforming us. And we've spent 130 million quid. And to me, that is just shameful. absolutely shameful.
But it's
no
a
matter which way you
profile.
look at it.
It's the profile of the players, though, isn't it? I watched that Luton game, and you just look and you just go, they've got everything we needed. Strong runners, defenders who are willing just to get, blood on the shirt if need be, people who are direct. And part of our problem is we've not gone down that direct route. And meant no kind of ill towards, Dyche and what have you. Won't hear a bad word. But the general consensus were we were sick of seeing that kind of football. So we want to see this fancy football. But you've made the point about Luton. Actually, what Luton is a blend of Kompany and Dyche. And that's almost what is getting, big players, big runners, players who are willing to drive, be direct when we need to. There's so many times when we get the ball on the edge of the area and we knock it down to the other side, then it comes back the other way. And then all of a sudden, the impetus has gone. It's back with James Trafford because the opposition have managed to drive us out. You look at them Luton goals from yesterday, they are all about drive and determination. And I think you're right. We've gone so far the other way. We've abandoned the bit that made us like the turd that wouldn't flush for so long in the Premier League.
Legs, hearts, and minds, isn't it? Legs, hearts, and minds. Have we? We kept this culture. Vincent built on the culture that Sean had left, but we seem to have moved away from this. But Burnley fans are patient. They gave Eddie time to implement what he was trying to do, and it wasn't working. They gave Steve Cotterill 19 winless games without really getting nasty. They didn't really. Was it that toxic when I suppose when towards the the Christmas time period when Laws lost at home to Scunthorpe, but they were in touching distance of a playoff place, and it was maybe a knee-jerk reaction, but they never wanted the guy in the first place. But I think Burnley fans, God grief, they've lost 11 out of 13 games, every home game. And there's no mutiny. It's not like, it's just, but it cannot continue.
It can't continue like that. But the results-wise, it can't continue. But it has changed, hasn't it? Things have changed. Things have, from the abject performances in the first couple of months of the season, things have got better. Results haven't got better. Well, I mean, losing. If we'd played West Ham day one, we probably would have lost 3 or 4-0 to them. Now we're giving them a game, so things are improving. And if there's anything that we take from the Dyche era is that it's that he was given time to build his team, wasn't he, and build his squad. He got us relegated and took us back up again. We should recognise the value in sticking by a manager when the times are tough. I can't think of any manager who's been really successful on day one, apart from Vincent Kompany last season. All the greats certainly endured really difficult times and were on the brink of being sacked before they just turned it round at the last minute. And they were successful at being given the time to get it right. And if we're going to just turn around and say, right, the first rough patch that we hit, we're going to get rid of him, even though, I've got an inkling that the project is working and that things are going to improve and things are going. Whether they'll improve quickly enough or in time to get us enough points to stay up, I don't know. But I think there's still a possibility that could happen, and I'm still hopeful that could happen. So, I don't think we there's no way we should have our finger on the trigger just yet. Let's put it that way.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that totally. And I think the shape of the team has been the most encouraging thing. In those early games in the season, we were coming on here and saying, I've no idea what formation we were really trying to play there. We're all over the place. There's players playing out of position here, there, and everywhere. It's not felt like that the last 2 or 3 games. The last 3, really, isn't it? Palace, Arsenal, and yesterday against West Ham. the structure's been there. They've worked hard. They seem to know what they're doing. Like I said, the pressing and stuff. When you see Amdouni chasing down the keeper and all that kind of stuff, it looked right. The big problem is, I think, that if things do continue to improve like that, the priority has to be, as much as we'd like to have a great centre forward and a ball-winning midfielder and loads of other things, but if we're really focusing on like January window being a tough one and you're looking to bring in a couple of players, is the defence, because I think we've got a substandard defence just generally. I think we've got an average goalkeeper behind a championship defence, and all the good work that was done in the midfield and the final third gets undone by that. So I would, if we can continue to improve and show that shape and that sort of thing, and then we can go in and bring in a really commanding centre half from somewhere. At least he's, the other thing that's changed, and I was calling him stubborn and arrogant and all those kind of things earlier in the season. He bit the bullet on Charlie Taylor as well. We started off the season pretending he didn't exist, and now he's just being Charlie Taylor, isn't he? He's not doing anything, not doing anything special. He's not the answer or anything, but he's been perfectly reasonable, and it's baffling why we started the season pretending we didn't have him at the club, but that's been learnt at least. So, I mean, I still go back to, my position on Kompany from a few weeks ago that he does need some help, I think. I think he could really do with somebody coming in alongside him to challenge him, as Greavesy was saying, an older head, somebody who could look at it yesterday and say, are you sure you want a tired Josh Brownwell to be your main player on the right flank, when you've got other players? So I agree, though, with Justin. It is getting better. It is improving. But I think probably the most likely thing is we look back on this season as one that maybe we've continued to improve, but we say, I wish we'd not made quite so many changes at the start. I don't know, Woody, are you seeing this improvement, or are we just kidding ourselves?
No, it's there. Everybody's right about that. It's no mean coincidence that we haven't changed the side for 3 games, and that's where we've seen it. We've seen those improvements that we were, crying out for. But ironically, yesterday it seemed to be that we were just missing out on Ashley Barnes' shithousing for the last 10, where he started flailing around in the centre circle, picking up free kicks. We just need a little bit more nous, a little bit more old heading, like you say, folks at the back who can who is that commanding centre off. It's just that fine tweaking and tuning. If we can do that, then yes, we might not necessarily go in and storm the charts. But I think, I think there's been a lot of the past 3 weeks that have been extremely, extremely impressive, apart from the results, obviously.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Woody. I agree with that completely. Chris, you've been full of strong opinions today. Why don't you finish us off with a little look ahead to Sheffield United and what we can expect coming up next week?
Yeah, well, I do agree. Performances have improved in those 3 games, but by the same token, we've scored twice in those 3 games and conceded 7. One of them's a deflected goal at Arsenal, and one of them's a penalty kick. So there's much to be put right. Sheffield United are in a similar scenario. I mean, their fans are absolutely distraught after the result against Bournemouth, and it really is. Rarely can 2 Premier League sides in such appalling form have met, but it remains the case.
Classic.
But it remains. I mean, Everton, we all expect will get out of trouble. Bournemouth, obviously, won yesterday, but they're within touching distance. Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest are slipping down the table without a way in me for a few weeks. Fulham are starting to slide. Burnley play Fulham, just before Christmas. They've got Sheffield United. They simply have to do themselves some favours now. No excuses, no mistakes. They have to beat Sheffield United.
How many points did we think we need before Liverpool to really sort of start thinking, well, we're still in there?
You should have another 7 or so, you'd hope, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 2 wins and a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that so we've all thought it would be 3 from 4, and I think certainly Forest and Fulham are showing signs of being vulnerable. They may well get drawn into that pack. Everton have got walloped today, haven't they, by Manchester United? So they're still in it. Remains to be seen if their appeal's successful, but it's tantalising. That's the annoying thing, that if had they held on yesterday, gives yourself such a shot in the arm, doesn't it? But
I think
it's only one win, though. It's only one win.
It is
only that one. Yeah.
I think the way things are going, Burnley and Sheffield United will both lose next weekend. Not possible, but we've conspired in every possible way to lose football matches. I think there'll be, I don't know, a spaceship land on the pitch at half time with a non-club shop accredited flag, and we'll both lose again.
Yeah, I think NBC are going to be on the phone to Woody and Boards to promote that game for their global coverage of the Premier League. It's Sheffield United. It's Burnley. It's the battle of the two shittest teams. Right, we'll wrap that up there. We'll get more into Sheffield United next time when we're back. In the meantime, thanks for listening to us, and do follow us on social media. Do give us a rating up the Clarets, and all the best. Cheers.